Yeah, good afternoon again. Welcome back to yet another session. And this session is really amazing. I'm excited to be hosting it. And we have Barbara Mones from the University of Washington, Seattle. We have MK Haley from UT of Austin. And we have Melody Lee joining us from the University of New South Wales. So again, the session is going to follow the same format. We'll have all the three speakers present their work, followed by the Q&A session. So for the audience, make sure you type your questions through the Q&A or the chat channels. All these sessions, presenters are going to share their experiences about creative, collaborative student work and also about integrating work into learning for sustainability. So with that, Barbara Monas, the floor is all yours.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It's really nice to be here and in such great company. I'm really excited to see everybody else's work. Um, I am going to be presenting a project that's a working project at the University of Washington. Um, and it is a, let me start here. It's called The Importance of Gum. And it's really based on the idea. Well, I guess I should introduce myself. So I'm a teaching professor and I direct the reality studio at the Paul G. Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering. Um, and in particular, I run the animation capstone program. And so I want to address a question that I asked myself, two of them actually. One of them is like, as an undergraduate, did you actually go off campus and do things outside of school? And um, I think those of us who actually did not go to school where we lived and to a new place, I have to say I never went anywhere, and so I I have followed the students I've been teaching for many years at the University of Washington are in a similar situation. Many of them are international students, or they're even uh, local students that don't live in Seattle, and so. Um, I remember from being in industry that was one of the most exciting things that we all did. With the animators, we would actually go on a field trip and we would go to usually the zoo, but we go to other places. And so this little talk is really about developing getting some ideas from the local community for developing bonding, not just in terms of the community, but also in the small community of the class. And in addition, it gives us great reference for creating stories, which is what we do in this program. In the program, the students develop, the whole class develops one idea and one story over 9 months. So the solution to going off campus and creating this bonding experience is to do some sort of field trip. And this year, we've done many different field trips. This year, we went to the Seattle Gum Wall. And many of you probably don't know what the Seattle Gum Wall is, but I actually think it's a really exciting place, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that and show you about how it's inspiring for what we're doing this year. So it's been around over 30 years. It gets removed and rebuilt by the city. And so what does it have to do with our animation capstone program? I will tell you. So here's our field trip. Uh, Truth is that this Seattle gum wall is actually listed as the eighth germiest tourist attraction in the world. So we're all proud of that. And you'd expect that you would go there and it would kind of be really stinky and kind of icky. It is created from gum. And and I did not experience that. Maybe it was the day that I was there and every day. I've been there a few times, not a lot. But it's also a beloved kind of attraction in Seattle and has a certain charm. So it's completely made out of gum. And on the left, you'll see it's actually started the history of this that I understand is that it actually started with some folks waiting in line for an improv session. And this is the improv area. And so waiting in line, and there's kind of the ticket booth to the left. Somebody put some gum on the wall. And then after that, people just had fun with it and started putting all kinds of different things on the wall. I think it started with pennies. And so there were tons and tons of pennies on the wall. And then people came in and took the pennies. And then there are also there people write with gum. They actually they put all kinds of things, messages. They make hearts. They make images, portraits, all kinds of things. And you can see to the right, it looks a little like stalactites sometimes. There are lots of things that people have figured out what to do about gum, and they're all different colors and so on. So it's pretty easy to do. I gave my students on the field trip a paper bag with some gum in it and some gloves. So that was because of the germy part. And so that they were to put gum on the wall and also learn how to blow bubbles. Now, I actually had no idea that so many of my students had never blown bubbles with gum. And so a lot of our field trip had to do with trying to get the folks that had been able to do it to help the folks that hadn't. And it was kind of frustrating, if you haven't done it. The truth is about this gum wall, and one of the things that it actually fascinates me is that it's at some point there was so much gum on the wall that had to be removed by the city because it was ruining the brick. As soon as it was removed, it was rebuilt by the community. And nobody quite knows who does it, but everybody follows it. And I love that idea. Whole idea is people love it. And I kind of proposed just this, for me, it's kind of this wonderful place you go and it's filled with people and people are chewing gum and they don't need to blow bubbles. They just put it on the wall. And it's kind of an example of freedom of speech. Nobody's stopping them. There are wonderful stories. There are all kinds of people interacting with this wall and each other. It's free, it's accessible, it's inclusive, it's unscripted, it's creative, it's organic, and it's a kind of permanent installation created by the community, which is pretty exciting. And I think a really good experience for the students. So the name of the improv theater is Unexpected Productions, which I thought was actually really appropriate too. So here is here's a group there of the students who are actually working on the film this year, the gum film. You can see that the gum goes really high up on the wall, and it actually is not just there. I don't know exactly how long this is, but if you look in the distance, that is continuing this wall with the gum. And I want you to pay close attention. These are all folks that are starting to, some of them can blow bubbles, but not too many. And so I asked them to blow bubbles so I could actually take their picture. And you can see there's a bunch of students that are like, they can't do it. So they're like spitting out the gum and they're trying really hard. And, but they're trying. And if you question whether there's gum on the ground, there is. So it is a kind of immersive experience. Take a look at the guy on the right again. He is actually taking the glove that I gave them in the little bag that you can see on the right. He's blowing the glove up, I think out of frustration. But lots of fun. And this is one of the things that I think actually also helps us develop stories. So the field trip helps us bond. Just so you know, this is a class that's never done anything with computer graphics. They're just starting out. They're making a film. They have no background or they wouldn't be in this class, and they don't know each other. So this is a great way to get them to get to know each other and create a story around this wall, which is what they're doing now. So I'm going to show you the effects tests, and here's how it connects to the animation. The obvious connection is that that's where our story is coming from. The not as obvious connection is how does this kind of connect to developing ideas in computer graphics and the production pipeline. So I asked the students to come up with story skits. So they had each had a partner, so two group teams, and they created and described a shared experience from the gum wall. And ultimately, what's going to happen is there's going to be a short film that's made by the entire class called Gum. So here are the effects tests by Erica Lipinski. And I asked Erica to show me what it was like to blow gum if you're bored. or blow gum if you're sad, or blow gum if you're excited. What does it look like? And so she developed a series of tests, and the whole point is it's the story of gum. What happens when people blow gum? We saw on YouTube, our best reference, that people can blow as many as 4 or 5 bubbles inside a bubble, and that's where that test came from. So these are just individual tests to show what happens when it blows. Basically, how do you pull a piece of gum off of your face? These are the more two versions. One of them is what happens if you blow. Can you blow shapes that are not typical? Can you actually do something unusual? And here's an example. We'll be working on that as part of kind of a fantastical, bringing the gum wall alive. And then there's also uh, interaction. How do you interact with somebody else, and you're blowing bubbles and with gum? And this is part of our story. Not this specific object, but this is just an example of hearts, because there are a lot of hearts on that gum wall. And here is what happens when you blow a big bubble and it explodes on somebody else. Okay, so I'm just going to end with showing you an excerpt, because I wanted to stay to the 5 minutes. I hope I am. And these, again, our students have never actually animated. We gave them these models. This is the end of one of the projects, the team projects. The little boy, whose name is Lucas, is laughing because the little girl to the left, Valencia, doesn't can't blow gum. So you can imagine there was a lot of frustration with this, and it ended up in there a lot of the collaborative projects. And so this is what happens is she takes all the gum from his little bag, which is a whole lot of gum, and this is what happens afterwards. So he's laughing at her because he's used to kind of like, oh, she can't do it. And then he discovers that she chewed all the gum. And here she is chewing all the gum. And he's at first really excited about it. And he's not sure what to do. And then he uses the gum wall. So, what does it have to do with my program at the University of Washington? It just it allows people to experience what they did on the field trip, and then build on it with storytelling in computer graphics and animation. Okay, I hope that was on time,
Well,
relatively.
yeah. Thank you,
Mhm.
Barbara. It's very inspiring. And now we'll move on to MK Haley.
So Professor Freeman is also here as a guest. I'm sorry, it's on this screen here, so you get to look at the side of my face while I review my notes. So Professor Eric Freeman is a colleague of mine from the Walt Disney Company. He was CTO of Disney Games for many years when I was at Walt Disney Imagineering. So he's tech, typey, computer science, game design. I am immersive built universes. So when I relocated to Austin to teach at UT, he was already there. And so although we very rarely physically cross paths, we keep in touch all the time on a number of things. Part of just pop culture, what's happening, when's this meeting. So he reached out to me in May to say, hey, I have this crazy idea. And it was massively collaborative. So the project was called DecWar. It was coding, installation, creative. We worked with archival teams. We worked with UT surplus furniture. And the idea was, can we revive a game that UT Austin built? So back in the 70s and early 80s, UT Austin had a computer science lab, kind of off hours, not during their time. They built one of the world's first multiplayer video games. It was an alphanumeric game. Kind of revolutionary, right? If anyone wanted, for the cost of shipping, they'd send you a platter with the content on it. So MIT had done the first version, which was a single player game. They shared the content. UT took it and made it multiplayer. And it was kind of lovely, right? It was fun. It was a very hardcore group of folks playing this game. In 2019, Wired Magazine did an article on it, and the folks who were trying to revive the code as well as the original computer that was on. And so that sort of got revived interest. They have a Wikipedia site and there's interest sites. So Professor Freeman said, hey, what if my class, creative coding, which is coding for non-computer scientists, got together with your class, which is interactive and immersive installations, and we rebuilt this lab. Like, let's tell this very UT story. It's connected to computer science, it's connected to history, it's connected to gaming, which is what our program is. We're arts and entertainment technologies. So he taught one class, I taught two classes, and then we got in contact with Dr. Noah Smith, a UT alum in astrophysics, who as a teenager was obsessed with this game. He was one of the earlier players. So we started in May to figure out like even the feasibility. What is this? What does massive collaboration across three classes look like? We're participating in an event that has other things. And so there was a heck of a lot of work. I would say 10 plus hours a week over our summer break to do the groundwork for this. And it seemed pretty darn feasible. So I'm going to play you a video. Let's see if it plays. It is not playing. So, oh my God, I'm taunting you. I'm so sorry. Wait, can you see that? Can you hear it?
We can see it, and maybe if you play, we can confirm.
In the dawn of
Yes.
gaming, one university lab in Austin changed the game. Meet DecWar, built in 1978 on a PDP-10 at the University of Texas at Austin. It wasn't just a pastime. It was a shared battlefield where multiple players waged interstellar war in real time. DecWar evolved from a two-player title called War, itself inspired by early Star Trek simulations.
Factor 2. Here's the course 148 Mark 3.
This wasn't a duel anymore. DecWar turned time-shared mainframes into living, many-player space battlefields. And its mechanics and culture fed commercial airs like CompuServe's Mega Wars, early hints of today's persistent online worlds. Recently, the original code resurfaced and was revived under emulation, prompting fresh study. Historians and computer scientists are dissecting the code base and rebuilding DecWar with modern tools, both honoring UT Austin's spirit of experimentation and creating a living reference for future work.
Thank you, Professor Freeman, for that. So he put that together. One sec, let me get back to our slideshow here. So Professor Freeman put that together to even explain to our students what this was, because they had no history of this computer lab. They had no history of this game. They hadn't played this game. So early on in the semester, Professor Freeman put this together to be like, here's kind of what it was. Here's kind of why it was important. Here's what it influenced. And so capturing the vibe of that time period of computer science at the time, and gaming at the times, why it's important to UT, was one of our first challenges. So we did a lot of work with the Briscoe Center for American History, which is on campus. They were only able to find 4 images of this, and they also found the original charter of the lab. And so we figured out what would we need. Like, we have a space, we have this big event happening in a particular building. What space in that building can we use? How many outlets do they have? Very glamorous. And then we figured out a syllabus that would work across the 3 classes. So my class would do something and hand it to his class would do something and hand it to my class, so that we could get this complete. So the students were not only building a game, they were building expansions upon the game. They were building tutorials for the game because it was pretty complicated. And my students were building that space. And the lab originally was probably a semi-clean space. We weren't looking to recreate the lab itself. We were looking to recreate the culture of computer science and gaming in UT through the 70s and early 80s. So one of the first things my students had to do was get images of technology from that era. And they were floored, like from coffee plots and projectors. Like, this was nothing that was familiar to them. So that was really fun. You know, the original lab, the upper right corner, there's a picture that the History Center got for us. And communicating this experience, we didn't just tell a story, our guests lived the story. They walked into a working lab with actual lab techs. They all had name tags. Every guest got their own name tag. They were an employee there. Each of these desks was personalized. Eric's class also revived 4 other experiences: Space War, Eliza. My class built shrouds on top of it that emulated the actual computers they came off of. And everybody smoked candy cigarettes because that is how we roll. And it was this immersion, both the look and feel and the students who were playing the role and welcoming you to live in that space, that made this super successful. So it was part of a much larger experience. Our fall event is called Audio Pixel Collider, and it's the event in the season where our performance students, sound design, animation, show lighting, lasers, that's where they're the stars. So we're sort of in a room on the side. So we're part of a much larger experience. We had about 400 guests in the one evening, November 20th in the fall. Over 120 students, mostly juniors and seniors, but not all, presented their work across that. So there's a video here in this link, and you have this deck where you can see what that final event looked like with a pretty thumping beat. So the students, we started off like, here's what it is. What should it be? And they all sort of pitched individual ideas. It should be like this. It should be like this. Immediately, one student stepped up and said, I'm going to wrangle this, Kay. And I said, Kay. And he sort of oversaw it as a producer on, we're all on the same team. You're in charge of little zones. So here are the zones they planned. Zone 0 was a portal. It felt very futuristic-y and kind of not on theme. But that student has never not delivered something awesome. I'm like, off you go, friend. And so outside the door, there was this portal thing you came through. Zone 1 there was a kind of a museum wall, like a lab wouldn't have had that, but it explained to our guests kind of what was happening here. Zone 2 was a recreation of that giant mainframe. They had interactive boopity boopity LEDs in there. Zone 3 was the heart of this. That was an arcade that they recreated for something Sega built in the late 70s. It had 6 screens, 4 of the screens on one level, 2 you were playing the game, 2 is a tutorial, and there's a human helping you. Eric's class had also enhanced this experience with visualizations of what it might look like in 8-bit, and that was playing on the 2 monitors up top. Wow, getting electricity for all that much stuff crammed in that cabinet was tough. Zone 4 was what we call the interactive desks. That was the folks who lived and worked there. They had pictures of their family. They had magazines. Our sound design student had radios and other things into the desk playing thematic news stories and music of the time. 5 was an archive. A lot of SIGGRAPH proceedings in there, pre-1983, and other things that sort of set the tone for what a lab like this might have. 6 was inspired by the little piece that you just saw that Eric had done, sort of a History Channel type documentary, because again, nobody knew what we were talking about. They didn't know it existed. So 2 of our students took the initiative to do a mini documentary. And so I can give you that link as well if you felt very much like, and this happened here, and they interviewed several of the original programmers who they tracked down, most of whom were not the least bit interested in talking to anyone about this until you say, hey, we're students doing this project, celebrating. And then they're like, sure, get on the phone with me. And so that really helped our guests understand what we were talking about and why. Zone 7, everyone's favorite, that was the kitchen. Our event was going to have snacks anyhow. And so inspired by the kitchen in Men in Black, where all those like wormy critters were drinking coffee, we had sort of a little corner kitchen there, which had snacks of the era. And so we went and we found what were popular snacks in the late 70s and early 80s. We had a coffee bar, and so our guests could have a drink. And that's also where they picked up their badge when they were hired to be an employee. And oh my God, they love Miro. I don't know about you, not a fan. Miro is a project planning tool. It looks like a giant old hairball to me, but they love it. I am not interested in them using a tool they don't love and are familiar with. So I had to learn this. This is like a giant post-it note wall, and every single thing you see there, you can zoom in and click and spin around. And this is how they self-managed across 3 classes. Who was doing what? Where are the resources? I would load this up in class and take a tick to like find the thing I was looking for. So one of the students made me MK's quick links, and it was a Word document with a link to each thing I could go directly to. I'm now using that in classes this semester. You want to see that video Eric made? You want to see our budget? Instead of like scrolling and zooming around, I was able to quickly connect that. So I really love the fact that however people preferred to communicate and share information, it was all in one shared spot, and you could access it and navigate it as you saw it. So I'm continuing on with like what this vibe was. We did the full-on documentary, which explained what it was, why we did it, gave some information on the programming, the tutorials, the visualizations. There's a link to that if you want to see it. Here's what the students look like. They all really took on the persona of folks who lived and worked in that lab. And this picture in the bottom right, that's the one that was very inspirational. That is NASA. National Geographic did a series on them and colorized the images. And look at those cigarettes. There is a giant ashtray full of cigarettes at every single employee's desk. And so they're having these aha moments of like, wow, the workplace was kind of different back in the day. So walking in, you were hosted, you were welcomed, you were escorted around. The average length of stay in this space was about 11 minutes to up to half an hour, 45 minutes, depending upon how long you got embedded, and also because there's a lot of other things to see. And the desks that the students had set up, they were propped out like you work there, right? Like there's my little Christmas trees on one, there's decorations, there's all kinds of vintage stickers, ashtrays. And so you really felt like you were welcome and you could hang around and sit in there. A lot of people sat in the archive and flipped through vintage comic books. We found a 1963 U2 yearbook that a lot of people really enjoyed. And so the space was very welcoming and educational. One of the things we did, I like the topic of sustainability that SOIREE had given us. We had no money, right? Like we spent a lot of money on lumber and paint, but all of our furniture, all of our giggity goggies there were from the UT surplus. Every university probably has one, a warehouse where furniture and stuff is. They loved that we were telling stories with the stuff. We didn't just need a file cabinet and a desk, right? And I said, do you guys have anything old? And they said, no. Lower right corner there tells that's a lie. And we figured out how to get some of these older CRTs to work, or we just built a shroud over a laptop, like you can see there. And then when we were able to go back and bring the furniture back, they loved hearing how the event went and how the stories went. And so we're kind of making friends all over campus by partnering with them and saving thousands of dollars because we didn't have to buy or pay to move any furniture or most of these props. So lessons learned, this was a challenge in collaboration, a massive challenge in collaboration. It's hard. Plan ahead for it so that the amount of work we did over the summer, we could not have done this unless we had done that groundwork. And part of it was reaching out to folks that we would be working with. Is it okay if I bring furniture into your lobby? The space we have was the lobby of a theater. Let the students run with the ideas they're happiest with, right? There was way more work than we possibly could have done. I'm not interested in making somebody do something they're not excited about. So the student who built that portal, great. It was beautiful. It was fun. Maybe a little thematically inconsistent to everything else, but guests like walking through it and hearing the whoosh door open, right? Let your students use the tools they're most comfortable with. That was Miro. But then also every single student had to go through shop training and get certified so that they also had to maybe get a little bit brave and learn how to use saws and air guns and painting and affixing tools. There's a lot of balls in the air, so make it normal to check in routinely with everybody. And check in on the students who may be shying away. Some of them had skills, anxiety, and just pull them back in and say, what can you do? What you want to do? I can bring you up to speed. I had a student who missed about a month of class, and when I reached out, she says, oh, I'm in too big of a hole. I can't get out of it. I'm just going to flunk. I'm like, not my class. Get back on board. And we were able to bring her back up to speed and make sure that she fulfilled all her requirements, but only because I picked up the phone and called her. We had several students in 2 of the 3 classes, and they were really great as liaisons. So lean into that. In fact, make it happen if you can't lean into it, like designate somebody to do that job. They were really, really amazing. Everyone has to be certified in the shop. Everybody started with 10 fingers. Everybody ended with 10 fingers. So that was great. Communicate with your installation location. We only had electrical outlets on one wall. And so early on, we had to talk about how we were going to run power through the space. So that was a done deal, a month before the event happened. Look into campus resources, whether it's your archives or your warehouses. Expand and enhance. Eric's students, added some visualizations and a tutorial to this experience to make it much more approachable, and then expand what it possibly was. Make expectations clear. Like a lot of these students are used to doing a thing and pitching it, not having to physically lie on their backs and install it. Right? This is a physical thing. You had to install it, you had to operate it, you had to tear it down. Many of the students were in more than one class, and so they had to like run up on stage and do their bit and then come back and man this thing. One student didn't show up to demonstrate something, so one of the students had to be pulled off another installation to run this. So from the get-go, understanding about flexibility and unknown unknowns and how we might manage them, let everyone be comfortable with that. And also celebrate and share this. That's the original team in the upper right there. I'm secretly delighted at how many women are in that picture. And celebrate. There was a whole bunch of moments where we just celebrated because, oh my God, look at what you guys did. There is a huge DecWars community online now. There's a Wikipedia instance, and they're thrilled to hear what we're doing. And somebody else might take this and run as well. So document, 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 so you can share it with lovely folks like you after the fact. The end.
Thank you so much, MK Haley. And now we move on to Melody Lee.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to share the project with you today. I would like to introduce Pebble, an animated short film in development through Work Integrated Learning at UNSW that brings together sustainability, collaboration, and industry-aligned animation practice. The project was designed around a work integrated learning approach that emphasizes learning through collaboration, student-teacher partnership, and industry mentorship. Students worked with real-time technologies and followed an industry-style animation pipeline, allowing them to experience professional workflows while responding creatively to sustainability challenges. Pebble is a visually rich animated short film set against the breathtaking and diverse Australian landscape. As its heart is the story of a baby possum navigating a world shaped by environmental changes. Searching for a sense of belonging, rather than presenting sustainability as an abstract idea, this film explores it emotionally through character, places, and belonging. At the Work Integrated Learning Studio, the team met weekly to discuss ideas, progress, and feedback. Online communication was facilitated through a dedicated Discord channel, which became a central space for visual feedback, iteration, and file sharing coordination. The production process followed a professional animation pipeline. Students were organized into a crew, structure based on everyone's interest and career direction. Each student took responsibility for a specific role while also developing an understanding of how their work connected to the larger production. I will briefly show a part of the animatic. For the time reason, I'll just pause from there, but I'll explain a bit more about the project. Visual development was based on extensive reference research into Australian landscapes and native wildlife. This ensured authenticity in both environment and character design and helped establish a shared visual language across the team. As work progressed through the pipeline, tasks were handed over from one stage to the next, requiring clear communication, planning, and accountability. That's an example of the turntable, and that was an example of the rigging. To maintain consistency in animation movement, students shared references, character traits, and example of motion. This helped align character animation style across multiple animators. That's an example of the animation our students produced. A key technical achievement of the project was preserving camera perspective and movement from Maya into Unreal Engine. This was achieved through automation scripts written by students. Shots were tested in Unreal Engine with design environments and real-time effects, including fire simulation. Students hosted workshops to share techniques and solve problems collectively. So from the test, we also realized how we can adjust lighting, and fire simulation later on. The project was successful in fostering collaboration and professional development in a studio-based environment. There were also challenges such as further industry engagement, the time and resources available within a term constrained the scope of production. In conclusion, this project demonstrates how industry mentorship and student-teacher partnership can foster students' autonomy, collaboration, and real-world readiness, while deepening engagement with sustainability. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for all the presentations. And audience, now's your time to add your questions to the Q&A channel. And as we wait for the questions from the audience, I'd like to start with a few. There was a couple of common threads I found across all the presentations, where students are either doing field trips to understand the local culture or going back in time. And I think, Melody, you were referring to some references about environmental issues and stuff. So what are some of the tips that you would like to give educators on collecting secondary data and material for going ahead with collaborative projects? And maybe we can start with Barbara, MK, and Melody in the same order. Yeah.
Well, it's critical if you want folks to work on a team for them to be able to look at the same things, to feel that as close to the same things as you can get them, and to understand the goal of what they're doing. What's the purpose? Because otherwise, there's a tendency for them not to feel as connected and not to care as much. And it also gives them a foundation to work with each other with the idea that they're supporting something bigger than themselves. And I think that is critical in the beginning of a project, because these projects are all really hard. They're hard for people who are not students. They're hard for people who are students. And as MK was saying, having people work on things that they don't like, there's plenty of things they can do where they will thrive. And I think finding out what that is partly the responsibility of the student, and also partly the responsibility of the educator. And so if you don't investigate and research what you're doing with the group, that process is not as successful. So one of the things that we do that sounds like it's very consistent is we always ask the students what they like and what they don't like. So they can pursue something that they're not very good at if they like it. In fact, they usually work harder if they really want to do it, and they don't feel like they're that well educated about it. And then sometimes people are really good at stuff they don't like. And so there are all kinds of different, I guess there are many other options, but there's also the option of, I didn't know about this, I'd like to know more about it. And so all of those options are good, and they need to be investigated before people run into the production pipeline. Anyway, reference is something that no, all I wanted to say is that actually getting students excited about reference is not so easy, which is why the field trip actually works really well, because it gets them personally involved. That's all.
Well, and I define that as, everybody comes to the class with a different area of expertise, and that's like what you bring to the table to contribute, right? And it's best if we are different, right? If we have too much of one flavor, that's not a very robust project. But also, every student had to define their stretch goal. Like, what do you know you're going to contribute because you're already good at that? And what is your stretch goal? So the gentleman who stepped up as producer, Ariel, says, I think I'd like to do project coordination. I don't know. And he killed it, right? So right off the bat saying, I know you're good at this, but let's like this is school. Like let's stretch ourselves a little bit. Also, you cannot underestimate what these students have never had exposure to. So Barbara said she's got quite an international contingent. My students are 1,000% Texans. I didn't have a single out-of-stater and I didn't have a single international student. So they all come from a very specific place and time. None of my students were born before 9/11, right? They have no memory of that. They have no memory of what happened after that culturally. And so we would spend time watching funny ads from the time, looking at the books and the movies and the television, looking at the opening sequences to television and movies to sort of get them in the mindset of what this time period was about. We had ordered some Bluetooth phones, and then you could pick it up and they had some pre-recorded fun messages on them. And oh, they laughed when those showed up and they took them out of the box. Then they were doing the dial, like they laughed hysterically. So, also don't use a whole lot of acronyms, right? Because they're not as familiar with that. But like knowing they're not stupid because they don't know that, right? They just have never. And so it's just a lot of fun. What surprised me was some of the things they do know. They all know all their Roman and Greek gods because of Percy Jackson, a children's book series, right? So really taking time to explore, no presumptions about what they know and what they don't know and what they want to do and don't want to do.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I think sharing my experience, it was about a couple of things. The first one is about having students' voice heard. So I do notice at the start of the project, I kind of open up the conversation of what do you think, what could be the certain problem down the track? At the beginning, students was not so comfortable about sharing the concerns, but as soon as they realized our working toward learning environment was quite non-judgmental, and we actually support each other. We're really open to hear everyone's voice. So then everyone start to open up and be more comfortable, particular about be themselves and also join the team. So then they start to share their concerns. And so based on their concerns, that also helped really well align the vision of the project, but also addressing how we can support everyone while understanding everyone's concerns and need in this learning process. And secondly, we try to build a mindset of entering this project, we know something we already know, which is some of the skills we build based on years of learning through the animation program. But in an industry practice, in all kind of practice, there's always things we don't know. And how we're going to problem solve and also help each other to learn. So that another way I feel like quite I guess good to share is about support each other and also how we problem solve together as a team. The other method was about each of us have everyone's own strengths. So we can all share our expertise area. So we host a workshop for some of the students to share, such as Unreal Engine side, and some students share their animation side, and some students share their rigging side. So we can all learn from every student's strengths. Another perspective is that as educators, by identifying the gap of such as skills, that where the gap is and where we could learn and grow, so I can bring in such as industry expert to help us addressing those gaps. And also as educators, the way to bring everyone together, this is also, it's quite interesting because it's working together as a team. So my role was not only the educator, but also as a project lead, which is quite interesting that I do realize everyone need a particular, very clear vision, and everyone prefer to know a very clear responsibilities. So that's kind of like we have to learn by doing and always adjust and shift our practice to align with everyone's need on this project. So
One of
that's
the things that I've added, this is a different class, my portfolio class, best practices for personal and professional presentation. It's 60 students. It's massive, right? And they're all at different phases of a resume or a LinkedIn profile. So how we take attendance is what's called an exit ticket. And they just fill out a little form. And it's just name, date. And we first started with ask an open-ended question about today's topic class, starting with how, what, or who. Um, Pretty good. And also give us an amazing vibe for the class. Like we had no idea. Over half the class was thinking about not showing up to their massive sort of science fair showcase because they were terrified to talk to other people. We're like, okay, like nobody said that out loud. And it's not just one or two. So we brought an improv actor in to get them comfortable speaking. So it gathers some pretty useful data. But we realized with this open-ended question, people felt they had to write something, and while we were reading a lot of nonsense. So we changed it to on one of these three topics, like, do you have anything about provide? We had the amazing Sherry Rayner Gray give a presentation on resumes, industry standards for resumes yesterday. And they had to say, what was one tip you learned from this presentation that you would share with another student? Or what was the most useful thing for you, right? So it wasn't this open-ended nonsense. It was very useful. It's also a quick way to take attendance for a giant class. But we knew we were taking attendance. We knew we get some questions, and some of them are like one-offs. And we're like, yep, I'll answer that directly for you. That is a very specific how to become an aircraft carrier operator, right? But then like getting the vibe of the whole class, what they're excited about and what they're scared about, was a really useful, unexpected bonus. So then we could address it in the moment and not say, why has half the class not shown up to their final?
Mhm.
You were in my head, MK, as usual, because what I was going to say is that we have used local improv actors as a way to come in and get the students to warm up to one another, to relax about the experience, and to understand, in many cases, to understand how to how to respond to critiques, how to leave things open-ended, how to be comfortable in the process. All of these things have been really, really important in the beginning and kind of set the tone for people to feel as if they can contribute, to be heard. They listen to each other. They're okay with failing. All of these. A lot of the people that I work with have an overly developed sense of responsibility in a lot of ways. And so what we do is help them relax, and then and that helps everyone kind of become human together and understand each other's foibles and kind of give everybody the space to be creative.
And improv is so great about supporting the next person in the pipeline, right? So you've got a large science fair type of vibe. This is what we're doing in the spring. 40 students each at their own table with a tablecloth and a chair demonstrating games. What if there's a really long line at your game and the student next to you doesn't have many people? You can say, oh, if you're interested in first person driving games, he's got a really fun one that takes place in a cartoon land, right? So it's not just about
Yeah,
representing yourself. It's about an awareness of the whole situation.
that's
Or
right.
saying if there's no one at your queue, oh, I also have a driving game, come over and play. And just kind of just giving permission to do that, but also understanding it's them, it's their classmates, it's our guests. How to make everyone feel welcome and comfortable.
Right, right. And then for me, back to Melody, it's kind of like I think one of the big challenges we all have, I'm going to speak for myself, but I heard it from you, is setting, and also I heard it from you, MK, setting clear expectations because once everybody feels comfortable, they still need to have a sense of direction, but they still need to stay open. It's an interesting process, and that process is a creative process. And so
Yep. And we
leaving,
talk about known unknowns and unknown unknowns, right? Like we're in somebody
yeah,
else's space. We had a student, for the love of God, escape over the helmet, who got a massive concussion and had 2 years ago and couldn't do his fabrication part. Like, how do we remanage that? Um, and we had an ice storm. I don't know what your part of the country was doing last week, but Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, campus was closed. Horrifically scary ice out there. We didn't lose power or anything, but like we had on day one talked about known unknowns. What do we do if we miss a few classes? And so having that conversation before you need to. Also, I don't know about your campus, 32% of the students at UT have mental health accommodations. Depression, anxiety, ADHD is massive. And the support that those students need is not only confidential, right? So their classmates can't necessarily see, but critical to their success to be able to roll them in to participate in a way that meets university standards, right? We're not lowering the standards, but the content and the experience might be delivered in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And another question. So, based on your experience with this collaborative project, what are some elements that you can reuse for the next iteration?
It's a good question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I can say that one of the things I'm very happy about being in a computer science and engineering school is that I'm able to save things from 27 years ago. So
Wow.
actually, I have lots of models that I can, not it's not that difficult to bring them up to speed and rig them so they can still be used. There's a huge amount of information that can be stored. So part of, I guess this is one other challenge, which is how do you keep up with industry? How do you figure out where, if you want the students to, if you want to think about the students' futures, what do you do to keep the old and and also make space for the new and make sure that we're preparing students properly for their futures.
Man, my students don't like AI.
Yeah,
Last year was
they
the
don't
year
like
of
it?
AI. They don't.
Interesting.
They're both. There was like we had to like shut down Discord because there was some very not cool conversations happening, threats and the like. So it's our job to bring them up to speed on AI as a tool. It's here. It's not going away, right?
Right,
Here's how it's being
right,
used
right.
on you right now, on your resume and other things, and here's how you can use it respectfully.
Do you have a policy, by the way? Because I checked
Sure
with my
do.
school and we can have individual policies, but the school doesn't have a policy.
Yeah. So UT Austin, the academic year of 2024 to 25 was the year of AI. And we were all given a policy. There's 4 options you can provide your class, and a fifth is not at all. And you provide for your class how it is allowable. And there's all kinds of like mini courses and stuff on best and ethical ways to use it.
Interesting. So
Happy
my
to
sense
share
of
that
it,
with you.
what's that?
Happy to share that with you.
Yeah, I would like that. I think there is a little bit of tension between the how do we use it as a tool to help us in for technical tasks, and how do we use it for creative story development or for design or for it's kind of an interesting problem because in some ways the door should be open and in some ways the door should be at least partially shut, at least some sort of guardrails, I think.
Yeah, that's why we talk about ethics and we talk about proper use. I just put in the chat the UT use, and it's up to each individual professor how to integrate that, and it needs to be part of your syllabus.
Thank you.
Yeah, we also had similar kind of pros and cons with AI by doing this collaboration project. So at the start, I was very much about, hey, let's do testing on AI, but some other students, they actually go against with AI. So we actually had different opinions of how to approach AI. And so we thought, okay, how are we going to approach this? Now we have different opinions. So how we did it, it was such as from the script writing perspective. And so we throw the story into AI and to ask AI to help us generate a script. And we all looked at it and realized it was really lack of human touch. So based on that testing, and then we went, okay, let's go back to our human edit, and based on the testing of AI, and that kind of helped us identify what's next and navigate down the process. And I think another thing to share was about the feedback process. I feel like the feedback process we integrate into this collaboration. What was working, it was every time we share the progress visually. So, and also we bring everyone in the team together to give each other feedback. And we'll also give instruction on giving feedback, as we are not talking about anything personal, always about the project and how we give feedback in a ethical and positive way to support the team. So we kind of follow that structure and think that works well. But I think about the next iteration for future practice, I feel like the feedback process can be even more visual based, such as if we had the possibility of everyone bring their working file, like such as in the program, we can actually look at such as the keyframes and how we adjust those keyframes, and to look at every little detail more specifically. And also, I feel like the way of the visual collaboration and iteration, we can bring some tools available, like to give each other feedback based on the progress of a video, such as we can comment on the particular frame. So, because at the moment, our feedback process was based on looking at the video or looking at the finished work and then give feedback. But I feel like the feedback can bring in X a little bit earlier, such as before the video was finished, and so we can give feedback about the process.
We have another 4 minutes, so do you have any questions to ask each other? Or if not, I have a couple of them. Yeah, I wanted to ask more about the skill gap, and also MK, you mentioned about certifications. So how do you bring the team to speed, and also in a way that you can find the best composition with all the skills and competencies needed?
We are a BS in art, which is very unique, a Bachelor of Science in Art. So every single student in the class, no matter what I thought your job was going to be at the end of the day, had to go through shop training. There's a series of online classes you take. Once you've passed those, you go to the shop and you actually learn how to use the tools. For me, that was a productivity and a safety issue, right? Not every student picked up a drill or a paintbrush, but every single student knew how to. And because we have professional expectations, because it's a Bachelor of Science degree, we have a lot of we have a little bit of theory and a lot of practical, right? It's just it's baked into the genetics of our program. So that means you better know how to document and present your work. It's part of the deliverable. You better know how to put together a portfolio and, a website. That's part of the deliverable. Certification wise, that's an internal university certification process. We do have little micro mini courses on campus that faculty and students can take to get competency in some of these tools, but it's not like a stamp on your diploma or anything. It's just you getting smarter in a once a week, 5-week class on AI for business or AI for art or things like that. But and we have similar things in leadership, right? There's lots and lots of little opportunities. Like Barbara said, students don't get off campus. They don't get out of their own building, right? There's amazing resources in the universe that is a university to get yourself up to speed on these. And our job is to help students get smart on that. So the quick links idea that I stole from Ariel, who made one for me, the professor who was like, yeah, your planning tool looks like a hairball. I've added that to my classes, which is, hey, guess what? The application for the SIGGRAPH Student Volunteers is coming up. South by Southwest Volunteers is coming up. Did you know that the university has a career center with hundreds of resume samples, right? So pointing them very directly at those things. In every class I open with what I call housekeeping. And that's just like what's happening, what's going on. The anime club is having a festival tonight, just to keep it top of mind that the world is bigger than these walls and these desks.
Great. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
For us, what we do is we hold information sessions and we do screenings on campus. And so that actually gives people a better idea of what we're doing and why we do it. And a lot of people find us through that. And there's a really fairly extensive application process because we don't have a degree in this. We actually accept students from all over the university, and they're busy going through their own thing for their own degree. So it's interdisciplinary, it's collaborative, and we will interview students, and all the students need to have professors recommend them. And we only ask them one really important question, which is the professors need to let us know whether they think that that student would enjoy collaboration. And so I'm really lucky in that respect that we can actually go through that whole process, and then we can select the students who actually go through this, but it's only because it's a very short experience. I only have 7 months or something. They only have 7 months to get through this. And then there's also a summer program. But vetting process is actually really important, not only to figure out whether they're the right people because they're in the right place, but also what is their background and what do they offer, and what are they looking for. And so these are all really important questions that we answer over many months.
Mm.
And so that's how we handle it.
Oh, we are, it's 6 p.m., but Melody, do you want to wrap up with your thoughts on this, and then we'll end the
Thank you.
session? Yeah.
And thanks so much. This is such a wonderful session that I feel I have learned so many things from each of our presenters, and also from the conversation that actually extend a lot more insight into future practice. So I much appreciated this program for sharing.
Cool. Okay, then thank you so much. And that was a
Yeah.
great session. And it's time to hand it over to Nick. Yeah. Thank you
What a
all.
fantastic
Thank
set
you.
of presentations, and all the students that you work with are just so fortunate to have time with you. So that's
Mhm.
Mhm.
I loved all of that. That was great. I love it.